Okay, this is going to be a one-shot special. I am making this because I've been having a lot of one-off conversations with people about getting started with Parinama Method and their experience. And I'm learning from what people are telling me, and I wanted to share that with you. Now, one of the reasons that Parinama is so potent is because if you're like a lot of people, there's a sense of something like missing capability, purpose, creativity, connection in our lives. And usually where we're going to go and look for that is going to be in the places that are familiar for us, where we're actually already probably achieving. So a lot of times people will be like, it's my career. Or, it'll be like, it's like relationships, it's in, creativity, it's wherever is the area that is already particularly strong. And so why Parinama is particularly powerful is it actually addresses every single facet of your life and improves the quality there. Now, I've done it all. I'd certainly lived in Bali in India, become a yoga teacher. I've been an executive. I've, gotten rich. I've done all the stuff that, I certainly, if you haven't already, definitely recommend it. But for me, it was a search about how do I actually solve for this sense in my life that something is missing. Now, for a long time for me, it was career. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how do I make my career better, better, better. So more on that at another time. I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about getting started with Parinama. And why am I mentioning the fact that Parinama is going to address the stuff that we're not comfortable is because Parinama is uncomfortable. And, it sort of ebbs and flows where it can be tremendous sense of recognition into contractions and people being actually activated while they're reading it, which, obviously can cause understandably the reflexive protections that we have that have served us really well. So, when I'm talking about how Parinama can increase every conceivable aspect of your life, I'm talking about it through the hubs. If you're familiar with that, which is, the physical, security and stability, emotion, feeling, pleasure, that aspect of joy, and, satisfaction. Above that is power and individuality. Above that is connection and belonging. We're getting into being able to express ourselves and communicate effectively. We're getting into being able to be more, have better imaginations, have more vision, be able to see things more clearly, and even getting into being able to process and understand information more of it and more different types of it. All of these topics I could get into more detail on here, but really what I want to focus on is if you are starting Parinama Method, a lot of times one of the first reactions people have is it's big, it's a textbook, it's and it's beautiful, but it tends to be intimidating for people, and understand, I get it. And so I want to talk about approaching the book itself and the practice in a way that isn't, looking at this like it is a book, rather that it is a textbook, and that it isn't a cover to cover read, and that it's going to be slow. And I don't know about you. I never read a textbook cover to cover when I was in college, and I also had this sense that that was something I was supposed to be doing. I don't know if you had this, but I remember being yeah, shoot, I've never actually read that whole thing. And now I understand that you're not really supposed to. There's actually pieces in it that are more tuned to supplement what you actually need in your own process. So one of the first things I want to recommend before, I'm going to do a little bit of referencing and reading for some stuff in here, and then giving some pointers on how to approach this. So first of all, it's a go slow situation. There is nobody that is getting through this quickly. And that's the first thing I want to address is that, there have been people that have been expressing sort of sheepishly the fact that they can only get one or two pages in their given reading time. Well, if you've watched my lives where I'm reading the book, you can see that it's actually the exact same thing for me. I can only get through a page or two, and I will, and honestly, having written the book, that it still is evocative to me, and I still find that there are, are paragraphs where it really leads me to contemplation, that takes me, out of like reading and more into my life and consideration. And the other thing with that is it's like giving it 30 minutes a day, understanding it's going to be a slow process, and having patience for that. I think this is just it's a really like this notion of going slowly. I just want to sort of like underline and underscore this, because this is not a practice that is meant to like overtake an entire life. In yoga, there's an expression called like a householder practice, which is a practice of something you can do that supplements and improves the rest of your life, but your life doesn't become that practice. And a lot of people that are familiar will be familiar with this type of thing as far as like belonging to organizations and groups. And, I've been part of like a yoga cult myself, and all sorts of, like other examples of this for another conversation, which really are that, that it's like your life is the problem that needs to be solved. Whereas actually like your life is actually really where we're trying to apply these things so it can be experienced more fully and more enjoyably, that you can be more connected, that you can feel more alive, that you can feel more fulfilled, which is absolutely possible. So, so with that being said, it's going slowly, it's putting it in its proper place as far as how it supplements a life. And so the next piece I want to offer up is this is an inspiration actually from a reader, Moira, who'd posted about reading two books simultaneously. One was a feel-good book, and she described how great it felt to be reading the book. It was Tyler Perry's, I forget the name right away, but the title sounds really nice. And also that she was reading Parinama Method. And so here's the thing. Like, because what we're doing with Parinama Method is we're addressing the parts that we've actually very likely kind of like maybe have been like outside of our understanding of what it is that might be the kind of compressing factor, the thing that is not being addressed, that's keeping us from like the full richness of our lives, is that Parinama gets into it because we're going up stepwise, and so encountering those things can actually be pretty activating. So having a book that feels really good to read, I mean, there are a lot of recommendations. You probably already have books that like you respond to this way. Like there's so many. I mean, people like stuff like, I mean, I've actually never read Tuesdays with Maury. Maybe this is a good time to start. But just the point remains, anything that you read that's kind of a fun read, that's a place of comfort, and joy and hope and aspiration. I think there's like was it like the Fourth Mountain or something? I'm doing a really bad job of offering up books here, but like maybe in the comments, if you have a book, please put it in there and offer it up for other people. A book that some people like The Alchemist is one that a lot of people really love, or just like an adventure story. Something that you can turn to that just, it's like uplifts your spirits. That's inspirational and aspirational. I love that idea of reading that alongside Parinama Method, because, one of the things, and this is a place, so there are a couple things with, so Sanctuary, creating a safe space, is on page 37, which is, before you need them, identify the friends, music, and other constructive comforts to turn to if you feel overwhelmed. And then it references chapter 11, pets, partners, books, walks, relaxing playlists, a bath, a massage, therapy, naps, friends, and podcasts have been and continue to be a safe harbor for me. A place to regain my footing when experiencing overwhelm. And I'll tell you now, as I'm prefacing this, one of the things that's really fantastic about this, and I don't mean immediately fantastic, is that, the cycle of doing Parinama is that there is a, so there'll be the practice, then there's going to be like an afterglow where it kind of can feel pretty good, especially if you're doing the physical practice. Then there's a recoil where it doesn't feel great. And most people are pretty familiar with this, like when working out and you're sore the next day, or if you have a conversation with somebody that's like really like opens you up past what you've ever expressed before. And then there can be like a kind of reflexive recoil, like anything where you're expanding your capacity tends to have a little bit of a snapback. Yoga, certainly, people can relate to this, in a daily practice. It was like you have a great practice and the next one is like, usually it's like pretty tough. And then there's the integration. This is on page 37. So, after we expand our capacity, such as challenging and revealing conversations, I'm repeating myself here, like anything that, insights from a retreat or vacation, we initially can expect to feel good, the afterglow, which is followed by some immediate discomfort that comes later, the recoil. Well, I guess not immediate. I inserted that word. And eventually by leveling out, the integration. So there's more on that in the book. And so a couple other things here too is that the practice is not intended to be a substitution for medical care or any type of professional care. If anything, I will say that personally in my experience, and I've seen this happening now with others, with clients and people are reading the book, is that what Parinama inspires is a larger context of like building a care team. So it's like doctors, dentists, therapists, massage therapists, whatever, like developing a deeper appreciation and care for yourself ultimately follows with the desire to care for yourself more deeply. So that is something also I want to make particular note of, is that this is really about, like expansion, and also like expansion into other curiosities and reading the materials, books, following information that like really is sparked or inspired by this process. And then, and then we have, good practices. So, so things like having a journal and a pen handy. Like a lot of people, when they're reading the ebook, were experiencing kind of like the itchiness of wanting to underline and take notes, want to make, like suggest it's like either, write your notes in the book. I've loved seeing people's books that have all their notes and like margin writings and underlines, and it's kind of exciting to see that. Not for me though. Don't do this for yourself. And so the practices that you'll find are at the end. So doing a practice as often as possible. So, and they're not long, but supplementing, if you in the morning, that you can do a quick practice, as you'll find in chapter 11 and at the end of the part 2 sections. So the techniques and exercises for each of the hubs. So if you're in the book, you're familiar with the way that the individual hub chapters are structured. There's the learning what the hub is, understanding interruptions and stressors, knowing the adaptations and holding patterns. And then it's the expansion with the techniques and exercises. The techniques and exercises are at the end of each hub chapter. I want to suggest that one way to read this book is to read through chapter 2 and then read the actual techniques and exercises of the chapter first. So if that calls to you, if that works for you, many people have described those as being particularly comfortable. They're comforting, and even just reading them, but certainly doing them is particularly helpful if, as you're going through the actual content in the chapter, to have the tools to really like work through any type of discomfort that arises. So yeah, I mean, that's something that's also been arising as an insight that people are doing. So anyway, I want to wrap this up. I could, all this stuff could go on in, for a significantly longer amount of time, but, some of the techniques and exercises specifically in chapter 4, the first hub, the techniques and exercises there for like grounding, creating physical boundary, time in nature, even your like physical space, creating sanctuary there. That can be really helpful to like really define that very early in the practice. And second of all, in the second hub chapter, which is actually chapter 5, is the tapping practice is on page 109. And then also the rocking, which can be really like provides a tremendous amount of comfort physically on page 114. But there's practices throughout the book that, I'm happy to recommend if you'd like to see more. But if you have a book that you want to recommend and just make a suggestion, I'd love to see that in the comments. Please like this video. Please subscribe if this is helpful. It really encourages me to keep going. But I love providing any support for this. It has been extraordinarily inspiring to be learning and hearing about what people are experiencing with the book. It's something that I certainly relate to as someone who really did kind of everything searching for what Parinama Method offers up as an opening and a possibility. So I'm really looking forward to continuing this with you. And again, thank you for watching this, and I will see you soon